And welcome. It is January 2024, and this is episode 3 of the Nights On, Lights Off podcast. This is Will from the Game Escape channel here, as always, with Jay of Shin Megami Talks. Jay, how you doing tonight?
I am doing really, really good. How about yourself, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Like I said, I'm recovering from a little bit of a little touch of the flu, but feeling good tonight. And looking forward to going down the rabbit hole as we always do once a month.
That
And
importing rabbit hole.
importing rabbit hole, and I've ever since we started doing this, I've been going deeper and deeper and deeper, and I don't see the end in sight. But we're coming off of the Christmas holidays,
Mhm.
and Christmas traditionally a time, I think, for gaming and for having a little bit more free time to dedicate to gaming. So, Jay, what were you playing over the Christmas break?
Well, one, well, I finished my ritual. I got through Parasite Eve. I guess we can start there. So I got through that again. But I also saw a recent video that I just felt like I had to attempt, and it was by a YouTuber that's called My Retro Life. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I just saw a couple videos of his. I think he's the guy that shows like some home movies of when he was
Yeah.
a kid. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, his dad documented his whole gaming life, and I came across a video of his cousin beating what was it, Castlevania, Dracula's Curse, which is the hard one, in real time, and it inspired me. I was like, you know what, that inspired me. So I'm gonna attempt to play Dracula's Curse. So I actually have the Castlevania Anniversary collection. So I've been playing that one for the holidays. And I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. But I tend to forget that we had a lot more time, a lot more time back then. And obviously, he had a lot of time to dedicate to getting good at that game. And I just didn't have that kind of time. But my God, is that game hard? So I've been playing that on and
Yeah,
off.
yeah, I remember being quite challenged by Castlevania back, especially the NES versions.
Hmm. Yeah.
I never I never really got to enjoy Castlevania really until Symphony of the Night.
Okay. Yeah. Symphony of the Night is a really good one. I spent a lot of time on that one as well. I broke that game. Ended up getting a lot of the legendary items. I spent hours on that game, but again, that was when I was what, 15? 15, 16?
Yeah, I remember getting that around the same time, right when I got my PlayStation 1,
Mhm.
and thinking like, "Okay, this is why I got the PlayStation 1 for games like this."
Yeah.
And I was probably at that point old enough to understand how the game worked and what it was asking of me, whereas I was a little too young, I think, on the NES to not only have the dexterity, but also kinda like the strategy to, stick to Castlevania
Yeah.
and beat it. So, I liked, I like that one, and I liked I don't know if they're Symphony of the Night's spiritual successors or sequels, but the range that they did, I think there was 3 games on the
Game Boy
D
Advance.
yeah, no, I was thinking on the DS, but yeah, there
DS.
were on the Game Boy Advance as well.
Hmm.
But I like those Symphony of Night style Castlevania games.
Yeah. Those were really good. I think later down the road they tended to overstay their welcome because they all just kind of stuck to that kind of Metroidvania styled, gameplay where you're searching through an populated location full of enemies. So, um, but I mean, they're always good after you don't play them for a while. They can be really, really fun.
Now,
Oh,
did you play that successor, Bloodstained, what was that, Curse
yes.
of the Night?
Yeah, Yeah, I think you're right. Bloodstain, Curse of the Moon. Yeah, no, you're probably right. Curse of the Night.
Curse
It's
of the
probably that
Moon,
one.
Curse of the Night. There
It's
was
one of
one like
those.
8-bit version,
That
and then
was
there
Curse
was
of the Moon. Yeah.
yeah.
But
What
yeah,
did you think of those?
I did play Bloodstained. Bloodstained was how do I I know a lot of people like Bloodstained, and I found Bloodstained somewhat I would say over cumbersome. Like it was a game that tried to do too much into what a game had just enough. I saw myself at some points in the game. I beat the game and I played it all the way to the end, but I found it like kind of annoying at some points. It wasn't that it was bad. It was just that I just got tired of playing it, and running around and getting lost and just searching for things. Like it gets better when you figure out where you need to go and then you kind of get over that hump, but it doesn't last for too long. You're kind of like, can I get to the end already? It like I said, it kind of overstays their welcome after a while. But it wasn't bad. It gets annoying. How about you? Did you play it?
I did, and I felt like it gave me that dose of what I wanted from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Like it had been at that point years since I played that,
Right.
and actually destroyed my PlayStation copy. I'm not sure how I did that, but it stopped working after we got to the mid 2000s. So essentially, after that point, I had not gone back to the original, and I thought, yeah, they kind of got the formula more or less right. But as I listened to your take right there, I do see that there was frustration, there was backtracking. Um,
Which
so I
is
didn't.
strange because backtracking is not really a bad thing. It's one of those things because I know that there is backtracking in some games where it can be annoying, but then there's certain games where it's actually kind of fun. Like if you play like a Resident Evil game, it can be kind of fun, searching for things because you kind of understand where you need to go. You know what doors you need to unlock. But in Bloodstain's take, and you know what, I do want to sound I don't want to sound unfair because the game isn't bad. I think also I got to a point where I played so much Metroidvania games that I just got tired of playing them after a while because every platformer nowadays is a Metroidvania, it seems like.
Yes, well, I think definitely these days, that they've found like a formula that they think they can sell, like each version of that type of a game.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I guess the long lasting effect or lack of effect that the Bloodstain had was I recall the frustration that you're talking about, but I don't really remember like much of the game except for a couple, boss battles, and then thinking to myself, after a while it wasn't as great as the original. So was it a riff on the original? Was it satisfying in the moment? Yes, but it didn't have that kind of lasting appeal for me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Bloodstain did not have a lasting appeal. Um, but the thing is that I can always go back and play Symphony of the Night and feel fun, but I don't feel fun when I play Bloodstained for some apparent reason. It's weird.
And it was the same guy, right? Who
Yeah.
did yeah,
Igarashi. Yeah, same guy.
Igarashi.
Yep, same guy. But on a positive note, the the other game that I've been playing is I finally got my hands on Espgaluda 2, and that's been a blast. I mean, Espgaluda 2.
Yeah, that's a classic. Absolute
Yeah.
classic.
Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. It definitely for the people who listen to our podcast who don't know, Espagaluda is a vertical shmup where it's kind of like a fantasy medieval ages where you play as one of, I would say, three different characters with three different shooting styles, and you can transform into a different version that has a different shooting mechanic. It's really good. It's so good.
Yeah, I got the Xbox 360 version way back when, and back when the Japanese Xbox 360 released all of those cave
Hmm.
shooters.
Yep.
So I imported those, and I also had it. I want to say I had it on the Apple iPod back when you can get games
Oh
on the
wow.
iPod.
Yeah, I remember those
Yeah,
days.
Cave had all of their shooters on there as well.
Hmm.
So I have a lot of fond memories with that game. It's just Cave at its most brilliant.
Yeah, it's definitely cave. What I would say close to like the tail end of their gaming journey before they just kind of went vanished. But I would say M2 did a good job redeveloping the game and adding different things to it. They always add their little sidebars and different mechanics that show you different things and how your multipliers work, and it's so good. I've been playing that a lot, and I bounce between that and Dodonpachi Resurrection because that's really good too.
Yes, that's excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
Um, the next game I've been playing is a classic on the PlayStation 2. Was It's Maximo Ghost to Glory. That is the Capcom remake of Ghouls and Ghosts, but
Okay.
it's it's kind of like. Do you remember a game on the PlayStation 1 called Medieval? Do you remember that? Where you
Uh,
where you kind of play as like an
Vaguely.
where you kind of play as like an undead Jack Skellington with a sword and he has armor on.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, it kind of plays. It kind of reminds me of that. But in the PS2 era, and I have to say, it's really weird because I had this game in my collection for years and never played it. And I've been in the mood lately for games kind of reminiscent to that classic, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1, adventure game like Ape Escape, and I've just been in that kind of mood lately, and I popped it in, and it kind of reminds me, it kind of reminded me that PS2 has some really unique gems, and I think a lot of people are going to end up looking at the PS2 for some of these games that you would always see in the dollar bin or the $2 bin or $5 bin, and they're going to be looking for these games at some point, because I get this inkling that physical media is going to end up kind of like vinyl records, and I think that those $5 bin games are going to be really sought after.
My God, I hope you're right because I've invested a lot of time and a lot of money into it. So
I think
hoping that that prediction comes true.
I think we both did, and the thing is that um a lot of those games that you always used to see in like the $5 bin at GameStop or the clearance bin. I, with the digital age make it coming full force, it only makes sense that people are going to forget about it for like the next 10 years, and the people who kept their games, they're going to be wanted, and you can kind of already see it happening in VHS and DVDs.
Yeah, I never thought we would come to a time when VHS would be collectible. Like I understood laser discs.
Hmm.
I kind of got into that myself. I understand vinyl, but cassettes, VHS, the worst media types. I think there is that nostalgia. Like if that's what you had back in the day, that's what you're going to go for. But your point you make about the PS2, I think, is well taken. I has said, I think in one of my personal history videos on the PS2, that I kind of see it as it's the system that you can collect for, and there's such a variety that the collecting journey never ends.
Yeah.
I mean, I still find PS2 games that I didn't know existed, and I pick them up and discover something new to this day. In fact, I think hopefully, depending on when my shipment comes in, I'll be talking about some Japanese PS2 games that I have coming my way.
Very
So,
nice, very nice. I You know what? I've actually been debating. Because for a long time now, I thought that I was actually done with the PS2, but after I've been toying around with emulation here and there, I'm starting to realize there's a couple of games that I forgot about on the PlayStation 2 that I actually need to start looking into, probably trying to get before they before it gets too crazy and you can't find these games anymore. But games like Nano Breaker or what was the other one that there was another one that I saw that I was like, I really need this. Oh, it was called Eve of Extinction, which is kind of like I would say it was a beat 'em up game, but a very bad one. But you had different sabers, like different swords and different futuristic sabers. It's weird, but it's a unique game. You won't see another game like that in a while. But PS2 is that gem. Like I have this feeling a lot of those $5 bin games are gonna be $40 at least.
Yeah. Well, you know what I hope they do with the PlayStation 2 is kind of what they just did with the Analog Duo. I want a
That would
new
be great.
PlayStation 2, HDMI, upscaled, where I don't know if you can rip the discs to like a hard drive and something like that, or just play them off of like a brand new piece of hardware, but something that makes accessing those games a little bit more convenient. You could use it
Mhm.
with any controller. I don't know how long we got to wait until that becomes a reality, but I think that would open up the system for a lot of people.
Yeah, that would definitely be helpful because I'm tired of buying PlayStation 2s as backups. Because I think I'm at that stage of collectability is where I buy backup consoles now.
Well, I think you have to. I mean, if you've invested in a big collection,
Mhm.
those lasers are going to die. I mean, I've gone through I think two PlayStation 2s, like my Slim
Yep.
died, and I love that Slim because I had modded it to use swap discs so I could play import games. It was one of the first systems that I played import games on, and now I need to get another Slim,
Yeah.
and they're expensive.
They are now because shops know exactly what they have. They're prepping for the future. They're not stupid. They're not stupid. But um, the last game that I've been playing is a game I told you about, which was Steel Assault. I've been playing this game, and my God, it has 8-bit difficulty for a game that looks so great. It's an action platformer where it it wants to be like I would say it wants to be like four different 8-bit games at once, but it does it all very well. It wants to be Batman on the NES. It wants to be Shatterhand on the NES, and it wants to be what's another one? It wants to be Castlevania, like all those games at once, and it does a good job at it. But it has a lot of trial and error difficulty when it comes to the bosses. A lot of the I guess the hazards in the game will insta kill you a lot of the time. But it is so good. I definitely recommend this game.
It looks awesome. I did not have a chance to play it, but just the art style, I mean, it looks like one of those love letter type games.
Hmm.
But
Definitely. Soundtrack is great too.
cool, cool.
Yep. What about you, man?
Well, I mean, really, my whole Christmas break was about the Analog Duo, and in
Y-
fact,
Yeah,
I
I know.
released a whole video on my personal history with the TurboGrafx 16 and kind of going right through to the Analog Duo. So I won't rehash a lot of it here, but suffice to say, I didn't know when I would get it or if I would get it, but it did come before the end of the year, and I have been kind of just in my glory. Bomberman 93, 94, two of the ones that I loved as a kid, a lot of the Mahjong games. And honestly, I didn't even realize this, but perhaps the best thing about it is that it plays burnt discs.
Oh
So you could
wow.
yeah, so you could kind of back up your whole collection, and if you've got, I don't, but I know people have super expensive PC Engine games and
Yeah,
TurboGrafx CD games, so
yeah.
you can just burn those CDs, and you're good to go. And of course, obviously, it opens up. I mean, all these ROMs or ISOs are floating around online, so you can play some of the super expensive, crazy games right there on quasi original hardware. So, in my case, though, I've been importing things kind of like strategically, some wrestling games, some mahjong games. I actually got the Carmen San Diego game. I don't know if you grew up playing Carmen San Diego.
I grew up watching the cartoon. Playing the game, no.
So I grew up playing the game. I want to say it was a lot of people have the memories of Oregon Trail being the edutainment software that they played in school.
Mhm.
But for me, it was Carmen San Diego. And a friend got it, and I remember playing it at his house. And sure enough, the PC Engine had a Carmen San Diego game. It was just basically the PC game. And that just was incredibly nostalgic. So PC Engine's got a ton of stuff on it, and it satisfies every taste. So I've been doing that. I'll throw a couple complaints out. The one complaint would be I don't like the controllers that they sold alongside of it. I think they're
Mhm.
very kind of cheap feeling, and I haven't been able to find a controller that I enjoy playing with. I tried obviously the 8-bit Do PC Engine controllers, like I said, that were sold alongside of it. 8-bit Do M30. I say is it Do or Do? I'm not sure.
What about the what was it? The PC Engine Mini controller? Because I remember you can be able to buy those.
Oh, I actually
You
have.
can try you can try
I do
that.
have. Yeah, I have that somewhere. I couldn't find it. But actually, I wound up just connecting a PlayStation 4 controller,
Oh, okay. Well,
and
that works.
yeah, and that's much higher quality than a lot of these smaller run third party controllers. So I've been doing that. The one thing that I was kind of surprised, and this is going to sound completely sacrilegious, but I didn't realize as many controllers as it will accept, and it will connect a lot of different controllers, PS5,
Mhm.
Xbox One, you name it, it'll connect. It doesn't allow you to button map.
Mm.
So like I got one of the Saturn wireless controllers that they were selling because I figured that would is 6-button controller. I could map the Street Fighter settings to it, but no, can't button map. And this is the sacrilegious part is sometimes I do actually like analog sticks in retro games, like if I'm emulating.
Mhm.
Sometimes, I'm getting older now, so it's easier on the thumbs, and I like the ability to play with a D-pad and switch it up,
Yeah.
and you can't do that with this.
Mm.
So, but you know what? Since it has such variety, you can find a controller that works for you, and then just enjoy it. So that was kind of what I was mostly doing. And a couple of other games that I was playing. Um, this is a really long title. It's called uh, Otogi Katsugeki Mameda no Bakeru Oracle Saitarou no Sainan. And we'll just call it Mameda or Bakeru, I think is what it's the short title. So I
Mhm.
sent this to you. This was basically I'm not going to call it a clone, but a spiritual successor to the Goemon series, or at least that's how it feels.
Oh. Oh, this is the one that we were talking about on
Yeah,
Switch.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I got it in, and it is a very competent platformer. And
Mhm.
actually, I'm guessing the character is a musician of some kind because the attacks are kind of mapped to the shoulder button. So he's got like a drumstick in his left hand and right hand, and you have to hit like the left and right shoulder buttons to attack. It's a little
Mhm.
bit weird at first, but you kind of get used to it. And the concept is that you travel across an alternate version of Japan. You can't quite tell if it's back in like the kabuki theater days or today. It's like kind of a mixture of both. It's not super challenging, but it is, I think, one of those games that we talk about being in like the right zone to import because it doesn't have a huge language barrier. I
Okay.
mean, there's some. I mean, just point your Google Translate, phone app at the screen, and you can kind of figure out what
Gotta
the
figure it
basic
out.
instruction.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's nothing crazy,
Mm.
and it reminds me of one of those N64 style platformers. Some great art style. The only downside that I have with this game is it has a very, very choppy frame rate. And
Oh,
you can see it at certain points, and these are very, very few and far between, where the frame rate evens out and it almost has a kind of like cell shaded look. You're like, wow, this game looks really great. And then you start progressing in the level and you drop to sub 30 frames per second. And it's just like, oh, okay. Like it's still playable, it's still fun,
but it
but
hurts.
it hurts. It does. And this is why we need a Switch 2 that is completely backwards compatible. Like whatever they come out with, Nintendo, for the love of all that is holy, please do not neglect this whole library of Switch games that could be unlocked with more powerful hardware. Like they don't need to upscale it. They don't need to do anything other than have hardware powerful enough to give Switch titles a smooth frame rate.
Yeah.
And
I've been thinking about that lately too, because I've been hearing a lot of talks about Switch 2 coming out, and the first thing that comes into my head is, the Switch library is ginormous now. It is huge. And the fact that it's it's not the fact that it's region free makes it even bigger. And there are still a massive amount of games that people don't even know exist. And I think that I think that it's a scary thought for Nintendo to make it backwards compatible, because I wonder if they're worrying that they wouldn't make maximum amount of profit if they were to make it backwards compatible.
yeah, I mean, I see that to a degree, but then I think I think the Wii and Wii U were backwards compatible. I think the original Wii and the GameCube were. So there have been some exceptions. And I just feel like, we're in this age where it just seems like it takes a while for systems to get off the ground.
Hmm.
So I mean, you could argue that like even PlayStation 5 still hasn't hit its stride yet. So I think Nintendo would be crazy not to do backwards compatibility because then you can just like I'm telling you, if it's backwards compatible, I'm buying it day one. I'll pre-order it or however you have to get it. Um, and I will love it because I have this huge back catalog of games that like I said, they need to be unlocked.
Yep.
And if the software that launches alongside of it, I'm sure it'll be like a Mario game or something like that. Okay, well, I'll pick up one of those and play it and enjoy it as something new, but I can still get tons of use out of it while you wait for the Switch 2 games to really come pouring out. If they don't have backwards compatibility, like I'll get it. I've had every Nintendo console, so I'll get it at some point, but it doesn't become a priority.
Mm. Yep.
So
Agreed.
I hope I I don't know. I hope they do the right thing, or because I think there's just it's such a brilliant system, and like you said, it'll be like a PlayStation 2 where you can discover things years down the road, and you want to play it in the best quality possible. So
Yep.
a couple of other things. You recommended to me the Dodonpachi Daioujou Special Edition.
Yeah, that was
So
me.
yeah, you texted me at work, and you're like, you can't let you know, this can't be passed up. So
You
I
gotta get
bought
it.
that. I
Gotta get
bought
it.
that. But then the funny thing was, and this was actually rather fortuitous, is that I had ordered it, I think, from PlayAsia and forgot about it. So they both came in the mail, and I'm like, yes, I don't have to open the special edition. I can just play the regular copy.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So
So you have a
for
so you're lucky. You have a sealed copy now too.
I do have the sealed copy. Yes. It's a great game. It's actually one of the games that I was playing on the Cave iPod arcade thing that they released, and it's a great version of the game. Like you said, M2 does a great job with all their little tweaks and overlays and things like that.
Mm. Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And then kind of my Christmas tradition is Steam sales. A while back now, it was probably 8 years ago at this point, and my parents would be like, "Oh, you're too old to, we're not going to get you gifts. Is there any kind of gift cards that you want?" And I would say, "Oh yeah, get me a Steam gift card." So every Christmas, get a Steam gift card. The sale is on, and then Christmas morning, I pick up a whole bunch of games. And this Christmas morning, I kind of went with the Toaplan shooter collections.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so like Twin Cobra, Truxton,
Yep.
Samurai Aces, and I can't think of what else is in there. It seems like a lot of like helicopter games. So, um, but they are a lot of fun and really well done. I kind of like their approach. You get the arcade original, play it on original difficulty, but then they have all of these different tweaks that you can do. Like if the game didn't have auto fire, you can turn that on. You can set the rate of auto fire,
Oh, okay.
which again, when you get a little bit older and you don't want to constantly,
Mash,
pound
yeah, mash that button.
yeah, like at this point I'm used to shooters that kind of do that. So when you have these old school ones that don't, after a while, the novelty of the old school wears off and you're like, yeah, my finger's hurting. Let me just turn that on.
Yep.
Of course, you can adjust, lives, and you can actually resize the hitbox,
Wait,
which,
you wow, I didn't know they went that deep. Wow.
yeah. So you and then depending on which game, you can actually visualize the hitbox not only on yourself but on the different enemies, and it even has like an AI assisted evasion. So if you're like struggling with a particular level, you'll be playing the game and then all of a sudden you'll just see like the AI like move your guy in the most precise way.
Wow.
Uh it
That's different.
yeah, it doesn't I have to admit I don't like that so much, although I gave it a shot just to see, how well it would work.
Mm,
And it's one of those things where like it's not going to save you completely. Like if you've already positioned yourself poorly as you're moving through a stage, and this thing is activated, like it can't save you from that. You'll still die. But if you just kind of start it, you're in the center of the screen, and it's almost like counter steering against you. And so it's a little off putting, but I appreciate the effort that they went to
mm.
kind of give you a feature set like that. So plus they're great games, and I in some cases haven't played these games in many many years. So that was kind of my Christmas gaming.
Yeah, I can see where, taking kind of giving you that assist in a shmup. I can see people on shmups forum would honestly say that's sacrilege.
Well, yeah, I see. I come at it from another perspective, especially at this stage of the game. It's like when I pay for a video game,
Mhm.
I want to access the entire game and use the game as I would like to.
That's true.
So, if I want to do like try to do a one credit clear and learn the game as you would have in the arcade, I should be able to do that. And if I feel like I want to use the AI assist, I should be able to do that. Like I didn't care for that particular feature. I'm not sure why you would want to use that, but I'm happy that it's there because it's opening up the product that you paid for to the widest possible audience.
I agree. Yeah, that's very true.
So, so yeah, so we got some news stories tonight, and we had to talk about this first one because one of the luminaries of YouTube, of the YouTube gaming scene, PeteDorr, came out with a video. You'll find the link in the show notes, and basically was talking about an import game pricing conspiracy.
Hmm.
And his basic argument was that, in his opinion, he thinks that Japanese sellers on eBay are colluding with each other to rapidly and drastically increase the price of certain games that they're selling. A game will be, I forget the examples he used in the video, but let's just say the game's $100 one day, and 3 weeks later it's $450 everywhere.
Yeah.
And and then you sent a video of a guy that I had never heard of before. His name was JContra. He seems like a guy who follows the scene in Japan.
Hmm.
And then he kind of argued against that. And he said, well, the reason why import game prices are going up is that you have more sellers than ever. You have a greater focus on Japanese import gaming. Influencers are finding these hidden gems and hyping them up. And because there's so many players in the marketplace, it would be impossible to collude in the way that PeteDorr was claiming.
Right.
So I figured we'd, you're Jay, you're the expert here. So
I
where do you fall in this argument?
Well, they're both of them brought up some really good points, but also both brought up points that I don't agree with. Um, in terms of PeteDorr, which I mean we all grew up watching PeteDorr, and I like PeteDorr. I think his videos are great, and he's knowledgeable. He has the same kind of seeing games in hindsight that will go up as I do, where you can just kind of spot that gem that's going to increase in value in the future. And when he brought up the whole eBay sellers might be colluding, I wouldn't say it's every eBay seller. You might have, maybe a small group here and there in Japan, but I don't think they're all doing that. Sure, I mean, it's possible that you can have a group of collectors going around Tokyo, Ikebukuro, and buying up things from some of their favorite shops and then reselling them on eBay. But the reason why I sort of disagree with Pete is that a lot of the Japanese gamers in Japan are all collectors themselves. I don't think that they would actually waste their time collecting games to resell it at an inflated price to an American market. I just don't see it. But what I do see is a group of tourists going to Japan, buying those games, bringing them back to America, and then selling them. That I can honestly see for sure. A lot of apparently a lot of gamers used to do that I would say in their early 2000s, close to mid 2000s. A lot of players would do that, especially when it came to the Sega Saturn, because the Sega Saturn wasn't really big to import until about what 2003, I would say, around that era. Um,
Yeah,
and
I would agree with that.
yeah, I would say around 2003 because it didn't really become the thing to collect for until people started posting it on like the internet. But when it comes to JContra, and I've been watching his videos for the past 3 years, I think. I've been watching his videos, and he's knowledgeable about the gaming scene in Japan because he lives there. So he buys all his games. He goes to book offs, and he goes to mandarakes and all that. And um, I sort of align with JContra in some aspect when he brought up that there's an influx of what was it? He said that there was an influx of like new sellers coming on the scene, and it's becoming more mainstream. I disagree with. I don't think importing games from Japan is becoming more mainstream. What I do think is happening is YouTubers like me or you or Jay Contra or what's his name that he also makes YouTube videos where he buys things in like Akihabara. Snuffy, I think is his name. Snuffy RGB, I think that's his name. He makes videos where he just kind of walks around Akihabara and he buys like Super Famicom games. When you have channels like that, what happens is that you want to share your passion with people online, not knowing the ramifications that it will cause on the market. Because the more popular you get, that means there are more eyes on your videos. And the more eyes that are on your videos, then you have like those little you have like little pinches of people who will spot it and be like, okay, I want to go out and buy that game and then resell it. You have that. But I don't think it's getting mainstream. I don't think Japanese importing. I don't think importing Japanese games are going to be popular mainstream until it's not a thing anymore. Usually, in collecting hobbies, the only time things become mainstream is when they're hard to get. If you look at comic books, if you look at trading cards, like no one cares about those types of niches until they're all gone. One person just happens to sell it for $50,000, and then all of a sudden, everyone's looking for it now.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that happening, and that seems to be the way of it. There's the first movers, and then once people realize that things have value, they're chasing after it.
Mhm.
Um, for my part, when I was listening to this, like I could see, like, I don't think it's becoming mainstream in kind of the general way, but I would imagine that there is more of a sensibility for the Japanese side of the hobby.
Mhm.
Like if a huge YouTuber like Metal Jesus talks about an
Oh my
import game,
god.
like they just the concept is hitting a
Mhm.
bigger audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think like the 15-year-old kid is talking to his friends like, "Oh, dude, you got to import, Dodonpachi." Like, it hasn't reached that level yet.
Like what's his friend's name? It's Reggie, right? Radical Reggie is his name, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. Okay, so Radical Reggie, he's a gamer who imports and he pretty much buys everything. But the thing is that he doesn't have the influence that Metal Jesus has. Even though people know Radical Reggie and he does show off, very unique gems, because he shows off some really good stuff that even I've purchased and I'm like, oh, we have the same taste. Um, if he throws up a game and the internet sees it, they're just kind of like, oh, that's a cool game. But if Metal Jesus talks about that exact same game, then you have all these people that's like, oh, I got to get this now. Like he has a different level of influence, and that's why I said I feel like um, it depends on who talks about it and what's the supply and demand. Like if there's not a lot of copies of this game, but then Metal Jesus says this game is amazing, then it everyone's gonna want it. But if there is no supply for it still, and Reggie talks about it, I don't think it gets the same kind of, wants and needs that everybody is like clamoring over. I think that also depends on it too, is who's talking about the game.
No, I think you're right. I think it depends definitely on, who's talking about the game, but I think just, Radical Reggie has maybe 100,000 subscribers.
Hmm.
You have another guy with 100,000 subscribers. You got a guy with 50, you got a girl with 200,000 subscribers. And if they're all talking about import gaming,
Hmm.
um, I think it does like create a little bit of a mind share for it, but I don't necessarily think that it's enough to be considered mainstream. I mean, uh, the
I will.
prices.
I will say this: if Metal Jesus ever decides to just drop all of American gaming and jump ship straight to importing, he'll collapse the market.
Well, yeah, yeah. And it's funny. I mean, hey, the guy's got maybe the ideal mainstream gaming channel,
Hmm.
in the sense that his stuff is just hits that broad audience.
Yeah.
Um, I sometimes I think his analysis, if you want to call it that, is not terribly deep. But if he talks about something, it's gonna, like you said, if he shifts to import gaming, the market is collapsed. But the prices, to me, like when I just look at um the issue with the prices, like they've definitely gone up.
Yeah.
But I still feel that you have to be, if you're selective, and if you're not looking to just oh, I heard this game on this channel, I must buy it now. If you just watch it for a little while, you can still find reasonable prices.
Yeah. If you know how to navigate that space. I mean, I've been slowly teaching you how to navigate that space.
Yes. Well, I'm just talking about like if you just take eBay,
Hmm.
like eBay is going to always be the highest for everything.
For sure.
But like I was starting to import for the Analog Duo, like I was definitely looking for all the Bomberman games, and there are people selling them for sometimes 45, 50 a pop plus shipping. And I was able to, by not, because I knew I had a lot of time before I was going to get this system, I just follow it for a couple months. And I wound up getting, I would say, all of the Japanese Bomberman games for between 28 and $32
Oh, that's not bad.
shipped. And I thought that was, that's on eBay. So that's reasonable.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But when if I had just bought the first things that I saw, yeah, I would have paid, a crazy price. I think prices of video games, you know, if you're looking at it like in the Pete Dorr video, he was comparing it to I think 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything has gone up
I
10
I
years
did
ago.
I did leave a comment on his video, and he didn't say anything back, but I did notice one thing. If you A lot of the times, if you're trying to import Japanese games, a lot of especially from like a store. I'm not saying like a eBay seller, but if you're trying to import something from a store, stores usually have three sites. I noticed. They have an eBay, they have their JP store, and they have an EN store, which is the English. I did notice on some sites that English is overpriced. They will charge you more if you're on the EN website compared to the JP. And now I'm not sure if this has to do with conversion of currencies or shipping, but I have noticed that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would figure. I can't explain it, but if you know you're getting an international audience who's willing to spend, why not try to knock up the prices a little bit on that website
Yeah.
or on that? Just it makes I guess business sense.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, I feel I see. I still feel like there's enough deals and games to discover at reasonable prices in import gaming that still makes it an interesting space.
Mhm.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that the good times have ended and this is just basically going to be like chasing Super Nintendo complete in box games 5 or 6 years ago, where everything was going to be incredibly expensive.
Oh man.
Um, so I would tell someone who's like looking to get into import gaming that it's still very rewarding. You just have to look for the games that aren't necessarily being talked about, or find genres that are interesting to you that haven't gotten the coverage from the influencer crowd.
Or or you buy in hindsight. You buy games that you know are gonna go up in price if you don't grab it now.
Yeah, well, that is true. Or or even better, just travel to Japan. I said on the show when my wife was over there and she went to some of these stores and bought up. I could not believe the low prices when you're physically there.
Yeah,
So, and
yeah.
I got to get there. I always say I you know haven't haven't had the opportunity yet, but I'm trying, shooting for the spring. See if we can make something work. So that is our first news story. Second, and I think this is something that you and I have kind of talked about on and off over the months, is kind of like, what is the future of video gaming as a medium,
Mm.
and specifically, physical media. So we'll start with the first of those points. You sent me two articles that I thought were
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
they were interesting in how
definitely.
contradictory they were.
Yeah.
So one of them basically said, "Hey, 2023 was this hallmark year for gaming. There were 3.38 billion people worldwide who were gamers. And as a global market, the experts are predicting that there will be $187.7 billion in revenue in the gaming industry in 2024."
Mhm.
The second one that you sent was just kind of a look at the US games industry. And it basically said that the US industry was looking at a 7% year over year decrease in video game sales compared to 2002.
Yep.
So it just kind of, we were asking ourselves the question, like, are video games becoming more popular? Have they peaked in popularity? Like, where is just the market for gaming
Mhm.
going? So what's your sense of that?
Well, I sent you those articles because I was curious. I was just kind of sitting down on the couch just in my study, and it's weird. I had video games, right next to me, but I was bored, but I didn't want to play. And I I I just I just had this weird thought. I wonder if video games are somewhat dying. And the reason why I had that thought also was because I'm noticing this weird influx of young kids on YouTube making videos about how modern gaming is this and modern gaming is that. We're tired of this. I've heard stories about how it used to be back then, and you keep the thing is that when you hear multiple kids not in your age bracket talking about the same exact thing, then you kind of have to wonder. And the first thing that popped into my head listening to all these kids make these videos was, I wonder if video games are going to be the old adult hobby that kids that grow up are going to be like, ill, please, no, I don't want to do that. Kind of like coin collecting. Like, I know, like, for a lot of older people, coin collecting is like the best thing in the world. And for me and my friends growing up, coin collecting is farthest away from our minds. And I'm wondering if that same exact thing is happening to kids today, because it can be a number of different things, right? Like, um, predatory practices, every time they get a game, it doesn't work. games get hacked. Then you have the whole thing with Ubisoft talking about you'd be happy without owning anything, and I'm wondering if some of these kids want to own things. I don't know, but there was all these different fundamental things that were popping off in my head, and the one thing that kept going off was, I wonder if video games are going to be the old man hobby.
It's hard to think of it that way because it's funny you mentioned coin collecting. My father was an avid coin collector, and I would go with him to the coin collecting conventions, and I just had that sensation. I'm like, man, these people are old. These people are weird. I'm not one of these guys.
Right.
And then, as an adult, I've gone to a video game convention, and sadly, the product is different, but the demographic may not be that far off. Yeah, I am not sure. Video games is the old man's hobby. I mean, my sense of it was, and of course, it's hard to generalize from young people that or that you might be watching on YouTube, but I always felt like for this generation, let's say if you're a teenager today, that video gaming is part of the fabric of the online social networking world that you're in. Like you'll be playing Fortnite and you'll watch a stream of somebody playing Fortnite on Twitch, and you might, I don't know, go on and make a TikTok of yourself. Now I'm sounding very old because obviously I don't do these things. But there's some TikTok content on
Right.
Fortnite that you're going to consume, and it's not one specific unique hobby. It's just part of that world that you're inhabiting,
Right.
and as such, you're not going to be necessarily devoting all of your time and all of your resources into buying video games in the same way that we did when we were teenagers.
Right. And
Because
that and that's another thing that I'm talking about too, is that a lot of these kids, they don't play video games. They much rather watch other people play video games, like their favorite streamer.
yeah, I mean that's the other aspect of it too, right? You're still engaging with the game, but you're not playing with it, and then I guess your money is going to supporting the streamer,
Hmm.
rather than the game. I do like the people I know who do play video games. It's never the talk is never of gaming. It's always about the one or two games that you're into, whether it's FIFA, whether it's 2K basketball. Obviously, I just said Fortnite, Call of Duty. Like the game has become a platform, and that platform takes up so much of your time that there really is no other thing that you're doing. Like the kids who want a PlayStation 5, well, they want it because that's where they're going to play with their friends on the new Call of Duty.
Right. Right.
Although those companies are very profitable, so maybe gaming as a discrete hobby is dying, but the profits are still going to be high. I'm not sure.
I it's really weird because when I found when I looked up those two articles, um and you were right, they're both contradicting one another. And I can see how it depends on where you're looking, right? So if you look at physical game media, I'm pretty sure physical game media has gone down a ton.
Almost
Um,
certainly, yeah.
but if you compare that to Steam or GOG, I mean, profits are up. Um, kids are playing more games on those consoles, and that's another thing, is that I also noticed that a lot of kids don't even want consoles anymore. They more or less want PCs. They want a game on PCs because it gives you more. It gives you more. I'm doing air quotes right now. Freedom to do certain things that you want to do.
Interesting. Now that I would not have guessed because I always assume that the price of PC gaming is just so high, to get into it. I mean, even if you're buying like an off the shelf, like Costco quote unquote gaming PC, it's still going to be like $1,000 at least. Whereas you can get into the PlayStation 5. What is it, like $500?
The
So
PlayStation 5 is 500, yeah.
yeah, so like I'm kind of surprised that they're moving towards the PC.
Well, if you, like I said, like if you pay attention to the way kids are looking at things, they look at their favorite streamers, and their favorite streamers play primarily on PCs. They, they got the nice flashy lights, they got the whole room set up and all that stuff. You see a PlayStation 5 and you see an Xbox sitting in the corner, but that's not what they're playing on. Usually they're playing on, gaming PCs, and a lot of kids want those now because um they streamers have now become the new celebrity. Um
Yep.
and kids are influenced by that kind of thing. They're like, well, I want to be like that. I want what my celebrity has. So a lot of the games that get very, very popular nowadays are games that are played primarily on PC. The weird scary games that you can play with your friends or make content out of. But that's also another thing that I think why I also kind of I'm gonna say that I'm alongside where I think it's kind of going down. Um, game sales are kind of going down, and that's because a lot of kids don't buy games to really play them now. They just buy them to make content.
Interesting. I yeah, I guess I'm new to that mindset. Like give me an example of like playing a game versus making content.
So,
Like they're
so,
just streaming it. They're not really playing it to get
so,
through it or
so if you really, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but I've seen multiple like young kids. Well, I wouldn't say young kids. I think some adults do it too. They don't play a game because they're interested in playing the game. They're interested in playing the game because they know it's a popular game that everyone else is interested in. Does that make sense?
okay. So
You
it's
know?
just, you know,
So like I think so when you hear like Fortnite, like there's a lot of people that play Fortnite, but then there's like the large group of people that's like, I hate this game, but it brings people to my stream, when I play it. I get numbers. So you have like this influx of people playing video games just because it brings more subscribers, it brings more, what I don't know what they're called, partners or whatever. I, I don't use I don't use Twitch at all. I tried and I can't get into it. It's just too much. It feels like I'm using cable, but for watching other people do things that I much rather do.
yeah, I mean I've watched Twitch here or there, but and this is where for the folks listening, if you haven't figured out that we're a little bit older, this next comment of mine will elucidate that for you. But
Our age is about to show.
yes, I mean, like I thought Twitch when it kind of first came out was interesting, and I will click around on it from time to time. But after a while, and a while, I'm not talking about a long time. Like after about a minute watching some of these people, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to listen to this anymore. Like I would just show me a gameplay video. Like I'm very much more of the YouTube person,
Mm.
and I don't understand how you could sit there and watch these people for hours and hours and hours. Um, and then of course having tried to like stream myself on Twitch and it was just like me talking to nobody for an hour, I was like, okay, this platform's not for me. But I mean, I guess are you saying that, there are certain games that allow the streamer to emote in a certain way and react in a certain way that maintains an audience better than other games, and
No,
so that's the games that they'll be playing?
I think it's more along the lines that if I had to put it in any way that I can sort of make it make sense, Um, uh, Here, I'll do this. Who is and who is your favorite movie star back in the 90s?
Wow. I was never a movie guy. I very rarely went to the movies, but I'll just say Salma Hayek because she was the one I was most
Okay.
attracted to.
Now, picture if Salma Hayek was running a stream where she played nothing but mahjong games.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So it's they're the new age celebrity. So a lot
Now,
of kids
now
would much
just
rather watch their celebrity play the video games that they like.
interesting. Getting back to the Salma Hayek stream, would she be wearing only the snake?
Only
Because
I don't know. She might get banned for that actually.
oh, okay. What? Then I'm not watching. Okay.
But yeah, for me, I'm in the camp of I think that games are definitely in a decrease because kids are they much rather watch other people play video games.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I can see it. I mean, in a way, I feel like the games are probably trying to cannibalize each other as well. Like,
Yes.
s-
Yes.
so, okay, if this one, might be popular with streamers, but maybe that's because, they have the best publicists and advertisers and they get those streamers on board and that there may not be like gaming will still be incredibly profitable, but the profits will just accrue to two or three companies, two or three games.
Yeah. And you know what else? It also might be that a lot of the kids are just tired of being screwed over. So they much rather watch their streamer pay for that game and just watch them play it. It saves them money.
Yeah, well, I mean that is true. I mean the predatory practices. I mean, I was just reading before we came on the air that my favorite series, Yakuza, is doing something like they're coming out with the second in their like RPG spin-off series. It's called Infinite Wealth,
Hmm.
and anytime you'd finish a Yakuza game, you would open up like a new game plus mode where you could kind of go back and just play the different mini games and try to finish any missions that you may have missed. Well, they're charging you for that now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you have to get like there's two like special editions and you have to buy one or both to kind of like unlock the full new game plus mode.
How'd you feel when you heard about that?
I was like, I'm just sad that it hit my favorite series.
Yeah.
That having been said, I rarely use the new game plus mode because I'm and I play these games pretty thoroughly, but if I finish it at like a 96% completion, where like I'm not going to go back and run every pocket circuit car race. I'm not going to go and try to get the high score in every single mini game. Like that's not me. I just don't have the time to do that these days.
Yeah.
But, like what else are they going to lock away next time? So I could see people getting, pissed off with these predatory practices.
Yeah.
That is definitely true. But on the flip side, I'm gonna throw this one at you. I still think that video games have become sufficiently mainstream enough where certain events, much like Hollywood movies, like certain releases will still be able to generate a ton of popular interest and a ton of money. And the one that I'm thinking of is the next Grand Theft Auto game.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Like I could see people who have checked out, like,
But
I don't have time for this, but when that thing comes out, they're going to buy a PlayStation 5 and play
definitely,
that game.
definitely. But now let's also calculate how much of those people are only buying it to stream it.
Well, see, I
Um,
think I think it's
and-
going to go beyond that. Like, I think you're going to have like the dads who, maybe they got
yeah,
a
yeah, you do.
10-year-old kid now, and
That's right. You
like,
do have those. I forget about those. Yeah. Yeah, you got me there.
yeah, I mean, it's not enough that's necessarily to sustain an industry because they're only going to buy that game, play that game, and then when, little Sally needs braces and it's okay, well, can't game anymore.
Can game, yeah.
I got to go out and get that second job. So, uh, but I think overall, I mean, I'm inclined to buy some of what you're saying here. And it's just like, I think the rabid pace that, say, our generation and people who are slightly older, slightly younger, like that consumption pattern will probably change. And I think that leads us into one of the other points on here is like the subscription services. Like you quoted the Ubisoft thing, right? They
Mhm. Yeah.
said that people just have to get used to not owning their physical media,
Yep.
like not owning their games. And I could definitely see, like, I don't think Game Pass or the Sony version, I don't think they've hit like a critical mass at this point like Netflix. I don't think the gaming audience is there yet, but I do see people like, all right, I'm not going to buy games. I'll pay for the, Game Pass Ultimate $20 a month or whatever it is, and that's how I'll get my games.
I will say this though. I think it's gonna go in the lines of, and I think I said this before in our last videos, is that I think video games are gonna travel down the same road that comic books and trading cards kind of did. I feel like I feel like video games are kind of like, well, certain consoles. I feel like certain consoles are kind of like that time when everyone didn't care about video games, physical video games like that. They're not going to care until digital takes over, it disappears, and then someone is reminded about I don't know what's a popular Switch game that everyone loves right now. Let's say that Mario Wonder game. So apparently
Yeah.
that game is very very good. But I was reading some sale numbers. It didn't sell very well. And I think that a lot of people probably bought that game digitally. And I'm gonna bank on it. I'm gonna give it, what year is it? We're in 22, it came out 2023. I'm gonna
Yeah, just
say
a couple
this.
months ago.
I'm gonna say 20, because it takes about what, like the nostalgia factor kicks in what, age 30 they say.
I think it was,
So
I think it's before that, but
I think it's before that, like 28, 27.
something like that, yeah.
Okay, so let's see, 2023. I'm gonna say this, 2033, 32, maybe. That game is going to be very hard to find because a lot of people probably didn't buy it. A lot of people are probably going to throw it away. The only people who are going to have that game are the collectors who bought it originally. And I think by then, I, I think physical games are going to be harder to get because by that time, you're going to have a lot of the kids who kind of grew up looking at these games and they've jumped to PC. They're going to look back on the things that they remember seeing other people use on YouTube. Like,
Hmm.
because I know the same thing happened to me. The same thing happened to a couple of my friends, where just the wave of nostalgia just came on. They just had to buy all their stuff again, and it's like it's been 15 years. What do you care? He's like, I gotta have it, you know. And I think that might actually happen again with Switch, because Switch is such a huge collection of video games. And I think it's going to be like the modern day Super Nintendo, where everybody's going to want Super Nintendo games and all that. That was what, 2013 though. Like everyone was like, I want the Super Nintendo games.
Yeah, I mean, I can I think that is kind of like a constant, that nostalgia cycle, and then ultimately how that is amplified by social media. So I don't I think there will always be like a market that's interested in some aspects of physical media. But I take a more kind of like dystopian view
Ooh,
in the sense that, like, I think the subscription services are ultimately coming.
yeah,
Y
that's for sure.
and one of the things that one of the articles pointed out was, Amazon and Apple and Google, they really haven't gotten into gaming in, like, a head-on way. Like,
Mhm.
they've dabbled in it, they've had their different gaming products, but, let's say Apple wants to, you know, get some market share, some serious market share in gaming. If they had a streaming subscription service for video games, they said all you need is a $150 Apple TV and you buy our super high-end controller and you're not going to be playing like crappy App Store arcade games. We're going to, you want to play the next Call of Duty and FIFA, it's exclusive to Apple.
Oh wow, yeah.
And they started buying up like back catalogs. And they go after it by saying the day of the console is gone. You don't have to pay, these crazy prices. You have to pay $500 for a console. You have to pay $1,500 for a gaming PC. We're going to we're going to monetize like, hey, you want the gaming PC experience? They'll do what Nvidia did, but on a bigger scale. It's like, oh, you can rent out, with our premium plan, you can get a GTX 40 or RTX 4090 level of graphics,
Mm.
and it'll be seamless, and you'll just, click and you're into the game.
Yeah, I can see
Uh,
that.
and when they start doing that, like, I think there will be this kind of competition that we see for IP and like movies and television shows, and Apple's going to be like, you know what, Sega, we want your whole back catalog. Great, it's on our service. And then Amazon, with their competing service, is going to say, oh, interesting. Well, I don't know. I was going to say Atlas, but that's part of Sega. I don't
Uh,
know. NIS America. You know, we want everything, all of your intellectual property. And then if you want to play a game, you're going to have to say, wait, what service do I have to subscribe to? What
mhm.
level, what tier do I have to go to? So I actually think in that environment, owning the physical media, it's like, no, I want to play this Sega game and I don't need this tier of subscription. I can just plug it into my local console that I've maintained and I'll play it.
Yeah,
Uh, um, so that to me, like, gets around the corporate dystopianism that we're descending into with a lot of these entertainment services. And
yeah,
I think that's going to be valuable to people. To say nothing of like, true doom and gloom. It's like, well, if the internet goes out in our dystopian world, you can plug in your Super Nintendo and still play it on your local television. Like,
yeah, yeah.
I hope it doesn't get that dire, but I do think the autonomy and the freedom that you have by having physical media at home will be a luxury that some people will still value.
Agreed. Very much agreed. I mean, you even have some people on Instagram making short videos about it. Like they're tired of streaming services, so they've actually searched around for DVD players, to buy on Amazon, and people have gone back to they're jumping back to watching movies on DVDs just because it saves money and they can watch what they want to watch whenever they want. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
only a matter of time, but everyone has to I I, I think we have to jump that fence so everyone feels the fire first and go, "Oh, no, I don't want this anymore."
Well, and it's funny, feels the fire is kind of an apt description because one of the other aspects that we don't talk about with all of the streaming stuff is the the toll it takes on the environment. I didn't realize this, but I was reading a couple articles about it. I mean, how much energy it takes to stream this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I did hear
And,
about that.
the CO2 output, and it's like absolutely incredible. And then when you talk about like when they get game streaming right, how much bandwidth and data that's going to take, and that they're going to try it. So there might come a point where, I don't know, if we're talking dystopian future, like maybe you can only stream like X amount of data per day for entertainment purposes.
That'd be
And then,
crazy.
just to save the environment. And then, like, once you hit your limit, what do you do? Well, I think in that case, you're going to go into into the shelf and pull out the game and play it locally and save the world. So there's could be that element as
we
well.
we promise, folks, this is a friendly podcast where we talk about happy things.
Yes. Yeah, let's talk about let's leave the, dystopian future behind and focus on 2024, and, before the world explodes, what games are we looking forward to this year? That's a happy topic.
Yeah.
So, we'll go one for one here. I'll start off with a game that I know we had talked about um over the past month, and that is a game called Retro Game Challenge 1 and 2 Replay for the Switch. Actually, I think it's called
Game
Game
Center,
Center
yeah.
CX Retro Game Challenge.
Hmm.
Um, and this was, I didn't realize this when we were talking about it before, but in addition to being like the background of this was a Japanese, I think, TV show where people would go and the host would challenge them to play certain retro games. But it was also released here. This game was released here on the Nintendo DS. And so basically what it was games that kind of riffed off of old school NES games, and it was basically like a high score challenge. But then you'd go out in the world and try to collect these cartridges for the different systems to play, and compete in these different challenges. So they're re-releasing this on the Switch. So we're gonna get the game that we got in the US, and this is just a purely Japanese release. And then we're gonna get this, I guess, the second version. It's gonna be fully upscaled, and it seemed like from uh, what I could understand of the trailer that there will be some like new fake games included in it. So it definitely kind of hit those nostalgic vibes, and I think it's going to be one that is definitely worth playing. I don't know that it's ever going to get a U.S. release, but it's one of
No,
those. It's one of those ones to keep an eye on.
no, it's definitely not going to get a US release. That seems like too much of a unique game that's unique to Japan in itself. And I think if it was ever released here, no one would buy it because they don't get it. Yeah, I think it's only for us weirdos, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, so now I'm curious to actually search out the one that didn't come out over here. Like, what were they thinking? What was this game like? But I'm sure it's probably $5,000, and I can't afford it. So we'll just add, so Jay, what's on your list? What's game number one for you?
Game number
Most
one for me is something that you already know. I showed it to you. I am hyped for this game, and it's Slave Zero. I think it's Slave Zero X. Slave Zero is it's a remake of a game that I played on Sega Dreamcast in 1999, and the Sega Dreamcast version was a 3D, I would say, adventure shooter. I'm going to say it was, and this new one is kind of like a retro styled side scrolling action game akin to Strider, and
cool.
it looks gory. And what they say it was kind of like bio horror. I think they labeled it, or uh, I think that's what you call it, bio horror, and it looks great. It looks like the combat is going to be visceral. It looks like it's going to be action just oriented all over the place. I can't wait for this game.
Yeah, it looked great. I picked it up as soon as you described it to me. I was like, yeah, I think I have to go for this.
Yeah.
And when is that coming out? I'm just curious.
February 22nd it comes.
February 22nd. Okay, and the Game Center CX Retro Game Challenge, that is also slated for February.
Oh man,
So,
February is going to destroy our wallets, it looks like.
yeah, well, I mean, December destroyed my wallet, January is destroying my wallet. So, when you get into this hobby, it's just perpetual destruction. Um,
Yeah.
the next one, well, actually, I'm happy with my next pick because I am not actually going to purchase it. It is Dokusei Remake. So Dokusei was one of those early visual novels, in this case from the Sega Saturn. And
Okay.
I know that if in Japan or in the visual novel community, if you want to call it that, it has kind of a certain nostalgic vibe to it. Like this was kind of like Tokimeki Memorial, one of those
Oh.
um seminal classics of the genre, and it's being released on the Switch. There was a PC release in English, and I have this, but I have not played it because I find that visual novels to me are best played on a handheld, laying down,
Mm.
and it doesn't work on the Steam Deck.
Oh,
And
that's
I just,
unfortunate.
yeah, so I can't bring myself to like sit and play this kind of game on a gaming PC. It just kills like the relaxing vibe for me. So when I saw that they were coming out with this on the Switch, I was hoping like maybe it'll give them a impetus to like plug in the English translation that already exists on the PC. Maybe they could bring it out over here. Maybe there'll be an Asian English version. So I think it was just on there like I'm happy that it's coming out this year, because I'm hoping that we get that handheld version that I think we need.
Okay.
So, what's next on your list?
Next one on my list, I feel like I always show up with the same genres, and it's because they're so good. This one's a shmup, and it's Radiant Silvergun. I can't believe that well, actually, no. I can believe now because there's been a lot of shmup ports coming out. And Radiant Silvergun was one of those Sega Saturn shmups that I've never played before, but I always knew of its pedigree. Um, I've seen a couple of videos on it, and as soon as I heard that a limited edition was announced for it, I didn't care how much it cost. I pre-ordered it on the spot. That's all I cared about.
Yeah, and then you told me about it, and I was like, "Yep, okay, I'm going to pre-order this." It As it's like one of those Saturn classics, and the pre-order had a lot of stuff in it. I can't quite recall what at this, but there is a statue or a
There was a statue. There was a CD. I think there was. I saw. Um, what else did I see? I saw. I think it was a plaque of some sort, like a what do you call it? Like a standee. I think that's what you
okay.
call them, right? A standee. Oh wait, I have it on my computer now. I can just tell you. So it comes with a giant collector's bundled box, a double-sided jacket for the game with a manual, a three-sided storage case. I didn't even know that was a thing. An SDX limited edition trading card, whatever that means. Um, what else? A mini magazine, Deluxe Plus. I don't know what that is. It comes with a Radiant Silvergun chip tune arrangement and soundtrack set of two. So it has two discs in one box. It also comes with a Radiant Silvergun Unit 001 metal ship. So it's kind of like a what do you call it? Like a a laser craft of the like the ship from in the game, and it comes
Cool.
with a set of 6 art cards. It's a really cool looking box set. Um, the out man, I'm looking at this, and I hope it's smaller than how it looks on the screen, because if that box is as big as I think it is, the shipping cost is going to destroy me.
Yeah. I was just as you were describing that, I was thinking, how much is this going to cost to ship? So, what are you thinking? What would be the shipping cost on something like that?
Uh, well, if it's anything like the what was I I ordered something. What was it? Little Witch Nobito. That was a big collector's box. It wasn't as it wasn't and not in terms of depth, but it was very wide.
Okay.
Um, that one, I think that one was about $45 to ship. This one looks pretty big. I'm hoping that I mean, I'm not going to cancel it, but I
No,
I'm
I mean, you can't cancel it. I'm just, you're trying to get a sense of
you
how
can't
badly you'll cry when that bill comes in.
yeah, you can't cancel Radiant Silvergun, but if I were to make if it's like a small pin, this because I'm assuming that's the thing that's going to be the make or break your wallet, right? So if it's the size of, like, let's say like a bottle cap on top of like a bottle, um, then I'm fine. But if it's bigger than that and it's like the size of my fist, that means
Huh.
that the box is going to be large, because that's going to be the item that needs to have more styrofoam around it to keep it from breaking. Um, Now, if they go the route that they did with the not it's not the same company, but do you know what's the company that makes all those Umehara Kawase games in English? And they
Oh,
do
was
the Isaac games too.
it's
Um,
like in or something?
no, Nin Nin does something else. They do the Cotton games, but
Okay.
there's another company here. They re-released Ikaruga, and Ikaruga has a model of the ship. Um, I didn't know this. I thought the model was going to come within the box set when I bought it, but what they did was it's a model kit that you actually have to build with hot glue, and it just comes flat like a sheet of paper. Um, like a sheet metal is what I mean. And it was able to fit into like a small box. Now, if it's like that, then I'm also not worried. That means the weight
Okay.
is going to be okay, and it's probably not as big as I think. But if it's a ship that's already built, yeah, we got a problem because that box looks big.
Well, now when is that coming out? That's like
This
closer to the summer, right?
Yeah, this is June, so we have time to
Okay.
prepare. Now the problem is, and I always say this, and I've made a video about this on my YouTube channel. Um, you always want to prepare months in advance. The problem that comes is when, let's say, if you've pre-ordered games in January, February, and March, and you're like, oh, I have an open window. This is all the way in June. You don't know what's coming up in those extra 2 blocks. So if a game says, "Hey, we're releasing in a month," and it's like, "Oh no,"
Huh.
and you really want it, you're gonna get destroyed. The other thing is, if it gets delayed into another block where you have another big shipment, then you're also destroyed.
Yeah,
But
well,
fingers crossed.
he hey, you know what? You gotta listeners have to tune in to our, June episode or our July episode, depending on when this gets released, and they can see how badly we will have suffered. So, uh, I'm hoping that it's a satisfying box set, but that it is not the largest box set ever shipped from Japan to the US, because I don't know where I'm gonna put it. and the shipping
L-
could kill us.
Luckily for now, for me at least, I don't have any other games pre-ordered in June. This is the only one. But I've had things happen where other games come out on the same month where an expensive thing I pre-ordered is going to be shipped, and I'm like, oh no. So,
Well, we'll see, and I think, a lot of these games we're talking about, like, this is the stuff that we know about now, like, things that have been announced,
yeah.
but the cycle always continues, so
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I look forward to it too.
oh, as do I. So my next game is Tohu Luna Nights. This is coming out, I think, on
I saw this.
January. Yeah, this coming week, January 25th.
Hmm.
And this looked pretty interesting. This had a kind of almost like Castlevania type feel to it.
Yep.
Like a witch character traversing a castle, sort of Halloween type landscape.
Hmm.
And it just looked, as far as, early releases, like it could be a lot of fun. I'm not familiar, like, I don't know if this is based on a manga or an anime. I'm not familiar with this at all. So I kind of like that when it looks like a game that you could pick up and play and you have no idea what it's about. I think that's why you import.
Yeah, it's the best. Not looking at any type of videos and anything, so you're surprised by what you're playing. It's just more fun that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will admit I did look at the videos just to see, like, oh, what is this?
Hmm.
And that's how I was able to say, like, oh, this is a platformer. This is easily playable, not too big of a language barrier. So um, I will be checking it out hopefully soon. And I'm not sure. I don't think this is slated for a US release. So it is purely an import.
I think at this point it is very safe to say most of the games that we pre-order are not coming stateside. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, like, although sometimes they do. Like, we were talking about Devil Engine in the last episode, and I just saw that Limited Run is bringing that
Oh,
out.
are they bringing it? Oh wow.
Yeah, but the fun thing about importing is, like, we're playing it now. We have
Well,
it
that's true
now.
too. Yeah, that's true.
We
I
don't
don't.
we don't have to wait for Limited Run's 8-month window of getting it to you.
Right. It's so weird too, because like speaking of that, I notice whenever I import something, Limited Run gets it. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna sell this 2 years from now." And the thing is that I always notice that the Limited Run version is always higher in price for some apparent reason. But it's like, but you can get the Japanese version, and it's the same exact game, and it comes with a better cover. Like,
Yeah,
why would I pay more for less?
I mean, I've ordered from them in the past if there's been
I have to.
something,
I have to.
unique, or I something, just hits me one day. But yeah, for the most part, you can easily just import these games. They're cheaper and you can play them now.
Yep.
So I would always suggest that route. But what do you got for us? What's your next game that you're looking forward
Um,
to?
my next game is my last game. I noticed you have four. I only have three, but I'm really looking forward to this game. And do you know? Are you familiar with the Gunvolt games?
Um, the Gunvolt,
They're kind
I
of
am
like
not.
they're kind of like Mega Man games on like the. I think one was on the DS or 3DS, and then they released a bunch of them on the Switch. Um,
I probably have one in my Steam library, but I can't say that I've played it at all or anytime recently.
I would definitely recommend playing one of them. They're really good. Uh, they have like an interesting learning curve to them because a lot of people what they try to do is they try to play it exactly like a Mega Man game, and you can't do that. It's inspired by Mega Man, but it's made by NT Creates, where it's like high speed adrenaline. You have to speed run through yourself through levels. You have to learn how to navigate through levels and propelling yourself and wall jumping and doing all these things. But anyway, the Gunvolt series is getting a rhythm game. and I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this. They're getting a game called Gunvolt Records Chronicles. Um, I, s- I, I always tell people there are certain games you should always pay attention to. It's horror RPGs and shmups and rhythm. Rhythm games always are very very difficult to find. And I just felt like this is one of those games. I already have all of the Gunvolt games, so why not get the rhythm game as well? It looks like it's going to be kind of like a, Hatsune Miku game or a Dancing All Night kind of game by Persona, but with Gunvolt characters and using Gunvolt music. So I invested in that, and I cannot wait for that. I think that comes out next month, actually. So yeah.
So, well, the rhythm games, you are right about those. Those can skyrocket in price. It is a very very kind of niche genre. Um, I wish I could get into them. I'm not a big rhythm game guy. I think we were talking about this in one of the previous episodes. Like, I completely lack any musical ability. Like, I think I'm physiologically unable to follow a rhythm. So these games are among my most frustrating. But from a collecting standpoint, they're awesome. So uh, you got to tell us what you think of it next month. And yeah, I did have one more game on my list. It was Under Night in Birth 2,
I love Under Night.
Sis Celeste. Yeah. And it's just, new one in the series. I think this is getting a US release, incidentally, as I'm kind of like scrolling through, at least according to the Game Eye app. It is coming to
Mhm.
the US. And I just like these games because I've always thought they've been very high quality, great art style. Um, a they're not quite like I'm blanking on what is the famous Japanese fighting game from Arc System Works.
Oh, Blaze
Y-
Blue?
you well, you have Blaze Blue, and then you have that other
You have Guilty Gear.
Guilty Gear.
Uh,
Sorry, Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue. So to me it has that look, but
yeah,
it's more accessible, and I'm not like a heavy metal person, so I always kind of preferred the musical tracks in Under Night, and I felt like each iteration has delivered.
yeah.
So they've won me over with that, and I'll be looking to pick this one up.
I love Under Night. Under Night is the fighting game of my choice. Like if I had to play any fighting game, I'm always picking Under Night. Um, and I will always pick Under Night until they come out with another Melty Blood that I can afford. Um,
Oh,
but
Melty Blood was good. I played that on the PS2 version. That's when I
yeah,
discovered that series.
I love Melty Blood as well, but I think Under Night kind of fills that Melty Blood, hole that we don't have. And I although I thought about pre-ordering the new Under Night, the only reason why I didn't pre-order it is because I have the other two, and I feel like I'm fine with the other two. The one on PlayStation 3 and the one on PlayStation 4. So but knowing me, I might just walk into a GameStop one day and see it on a shelf, and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna buy this now.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those games that I don't think warrants in like an immediate purchase,
Yeah,
but throughout the year I'm going to have my eye on it, and it goes on sale or something like that. One of those quick Amazon sales one day, you look in your shopping cart and it drops maybe 20%,
yeah,
25%. I'll pick it up at that point because it's just, to me, it's a great pick up and play game. I mean, in a way, I want to get it on Steam because I feel like I would enjoy playing this on the Steam Deck as well as the PC. So I'm not sure
that would be
when I'll
nice.
pick it up, but
Mhm.
it's at some point in 2024. It's going into the collection.
Oh no, it's got a limited edition. Now I gotta buy it.
It's just that fast, folks. It's just
Oh
that
my
you can
god.
listen. If someone's listening to this and like you have a game or a product you want to sell us, just like Send us an email, limited edition. We will buy it.
Yeah.
You are guaranteed 2 sales.
I'm a sucker for nice boxes. I am a sucker for them, and this looks like a pretty nice box. Jeez. Well,
You'll have to make it happen after the episode.
yeah, I do.
But it's funny. Before we kind of transition to our last segment, it came from Japan. When we you did a stream a couple weekends ago
Mhm.
about your manga collection, and
Oh
you've
yeah.
been like really hitting hard into manga, and I feel like that just belongs here on this podcast. Like it's just another aspect of your collecting and fandom. Just give the listeners a little peek into that side of you, because I thought it was fascinating to see.
So I actually got into manga by complete accident. I don't know if you knew, but I used to draw comics professionally, and
I did not know that.
yeah, I would illustrate comics professionally for a bunch of different clients, and um, I wanted to get into a different kind of medium at the time. So I started looking at a manga, and the first manga that caught my eyes was a manga called I Am a Hero, which is a very interesting manga about a man who lives in Japan as a manga artist, and he a zombie apocalypse happens, but he is the only one in Tokyo with a gun, with a shotgun with only 100 rounds. Now, the unique catch to the story is that he's also a medicated schizophrenic. So he doesn't know if what he's seeing is actually real. So when I heard this premise and I started reading it, I immediately got so invested. I was like, I didn't know that Japanese manga could be this in depth. So I just started buying manga back and forth, and I wasn't paying much attention to my American comics anymore because I just felt like Japanese manga told stories differently that was a bit more engaging than American comic books. With American comic books, although there was a form of escape, I think it has something to do with manga being a lot longer to read. Like I can read a comic book in a regular normal comic book in about 15 minutes, maybe 10, and a manga would usually take me about an hour. But it's so worth it when I read it. And when I was buying my manga, I would always ask my subscribers, hey, recommend me something. And after a while, it just snowballed into another, rabbit hole of new stuff that I can add to my collection. I definitely have a problem.
Huh. Yeah, well, I mean that was what I mean. Of course, I knew you were kind of into it, but when I was watching you and on this stream, like you had stacks of them, and you were putting
Yeah.
them in the protective cases, and I was just like, wow, this is a whole other kind of field of collecting that
Yeah.
was totally new to me. Of course, I know what manga is. I've read certain manga. I was saying, on the stream that I was more of a person who I like reading it on a tablet if I am going to read it, just
Mhm.
because I just don't have space, and I kind of feel like I like if you have an OLED tablet, that inky black on white I think really pops for manga. But I just had no idea that there were this many like U.S. physical releases of this stuff. I mean, is this something that is kind of picked up over the years, or was there always like a healthy market for this?
I think when I started, it was smaller. Manga was a lot smaller, and this kind of goes back into what I was saying about kids kind of shifting and saying that video games is kind of like the old man hobby. Um, because I was into both markets, American comics and Japanese manga, Um, I saw the decline in American comics happen in real time, and also in real time I saw the increase in Japanese manga happen. When I used to go inside Barnes and Nobles, at the time, American comics would take up at least 4 rows, and manga would take up one bookshelf. Of just manga. If you go inside Barnes and Nobles now, well, the ones that I've been to, American comic books take up one shelf now, maybe one and a half, and then there's like 8 rows of manga. So
Wow.
kids kids are into more anime and reading Japanese manga, and a lot of the adults now have jumped ship as well because they don't find American comic books as good as they used to be. And the storytelling in Japanese manga is superb. I mean, I haven't read anything as good as some of the Japanese manga that I've read lately in American comics. So, um, I'm slowly building up a library, and my next video I think is going to be what my collection looks like now. And there's a lot of variety there that I actually enjoy too. So, and I think in the stream you were telling me about a mahjong manga, and I was like, I have to see this.
Yes. No, I mean, I got into it. Well, got into it. I mean, I'm not really a huge manga guy, but when I really discovered it for the first time was through the Akagi manga, which is about a sort of a kind of delinquent teen in, I don't know, maybe 1950s, 60s Japan.
Mm.
And he's sort of risks his life in a game of chicken, the old car game, who's going to
Yeah,
break first.
yeah.
And he's brought into this Yakuza mahjong parlor, and a guy's down on his luck, and they're like, all right, kid, play a hand for me. And it turns out that he's just a natural genius at mahjong. And the manga, I mean, this is one of the longest running mangas around, so I have not read every episode, but kind of the main arc kind of takes him through the Japanese underworld, playing progressively more challenging opponents with kind of different rule sets and risking his life. And eventually he goes into this epic game with Japan's richest man who kind of lives in the shadows. Um, and I kind of like learned a little bit of mahjong through it, and I found it like once I understood the rules, because the manga has to teach you, like when you read it from the very beginning, a kid's not going to know what mahjong is.
Right.
So it explains it in a kind of I thought a very unique way. Like as the kid is learning how to play the game, you're learning the game, and it's since had a number of different spin-offs and things like that. But there's a whole genre of mahjong manga, and you could only ever get them like online through scanlations. I mean, no one is going to translate this stuff officially, but that was kind of my introduction to it. And I still read them here or there.
I think as I got older, um, the manga has helped me relax and fall asleep while telling me
Yes, it can
really
do that.
by telling me really unique stories, depending on what I'm reading, because some of the can be very depressing, and those are the ones I have to wait until the sun comes up to read. So, um, I usually pass those, but I think if you were to, I I think one of the other reasons why I started going hard again in my manga collecting is because I think I'm getting kind of close to the end of m- the systems that I really want to collect for. Like I know I there's like 2 more games that I want to collect for the PS2, and there's really just one game that I really want on the PS1, which I can't find, which is Jumping Flash. I can't find that.
Hmm.
So with those 3 systems, I know I'm gonna, you know, kind of, I guess, dabble in some of the Switch stuff that I want to play, and I'm gonna buy. But I can already kind of feel that I'm like at the end um of what I want to buy until like Radiant Silvergun 2 comes out or something. Something crazy. But I've jumped to manga because it feels somewhat different, but at the same time familiar. But it also helps with it also has the replayability, as in you can always go back and reread some of these stories that you really really like. So I've as a kid I've always collected comic books, so it's kind of easy. I have a collective nature. I'm noticing. I just
Yes,
collect
yes.
everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is part of, part of the personality type, like,
Yeah.
there's and I've tried to explain this to people, like, well, they say, "Well, you don't play all of these games. Why would you spend money on them?" And I'm like, "Well, I enjoy the act of collecting.
Yeah.
I enjoy the hunt. I enjoy creating this catalog of things that I find interesting for myself, and if I play them, it's a bonus." Um, but there's some people who get that, and then there's some people who are like, "What a complete and utter waste," and those people are not collectors.
Yeah.
But I mean, with the manga too. I mean, that's something that I think has that relaxation element to it, where you can just, not every day do you want to, after a hard day of work, do you want to necessarily like hook up the old console and get into a really, heavy gameplay session. Sometimes you just want to, relax with something that nonetheless is video game adjacent.
Hmm.
So it kind of seems like manga might be, a good option in that case.
Very true. I think you would enjoy uh getting into manga collecting. I'm not gonna lie. It definitely took a lot of trial and error to really find what it was that I was looking for. But I got into my groove with going through those errors because I ended up selling a lot of the stuff in the beginning because I was just not feeling it at the time. But I think because of your collective nature, you might actually enjoy it. And if you ever do happen to you want to go down that road, yo, let me know and I can give you some recommendations.
I will definitely hit you up. Definitely. So we're gonna wind it down with our final segment. It came from Japan. Jay, what did you pick up from Japan?
All right. So it's only one thing. Nothing too crazy, but I got a copy of limited edition in box complete of Osman on the Nintendo Switch. If you don't know what that is
That
Cannon
is sweet.
Dancer. You know what that is, right?
Oh yeah, that is
Oh
one
my
that
god.
I've wanted. I didn't pull the trigger on it, and I'm kicking myself.
Oh man, Osman is so good. It definitely feels like an arcade game that just steals your money. But it's so good. It is made by the original creator of Strider. It's basically a spiritual successor sequel to Strider. It plays exactly the same, but with a little more like pizzazz. I think this game is a lot more flashy than Strider, in my opinion. Um, but it's definitely harder for sure. I've been playing the game and I just dump quarters into the game. Well, metaphorical quarters. I constantly tap that trigger button to put more coins in. But it's so good. I've been playing that. The limited edition is pretty good. It comes with your standard fare stuff. Um your soundtrack, some postcards and stuff like that. But I know there's something else that comes in and I can't remember what it is. But the packaging is fantastic. If I happen to come across it somewhere for a very good price, I will link it to you, man. Get you a copy.
Awesome. Now that is, I definitely had my eye on it, and for whatever reason I didn't pick it up, but it looks like a super game.
Yeah.
Now,
It's,
for me, we talk about video game adjacent stuff. That's, manga definitely, but I'm a fan of art books and magazines, and that's
yes.
kind of what I like to collect when I'm not collecting video games. And I recently got in the Nintendo Dream magazine for December and January, this December 2023, January 2024. And I discovered Nintendo Dream actually a while ago. Up near New York City, on the Jersey side, there's this Japanese mall, and they have a bookstore, a Kitty Kumiya bookstore. And I noticed, I was like, oh, Nintendo. And it's right around the time like Nintendo Power stopped, like went out of business.
Hmm.
But there was the Japanese Nintendo magazine, and that is Nintendo Dream. And it's basically uh, Japanese Nintendo Power. And it's been running for a long, long time. And it just takes me back to the days of getting the official Nintendo magazine, and you're looking and seeing all the the releases that are going to come out in the next month. It's incredibly well laid out. Obviously, I buy these for nostalgic purposes, not because I'm actually reading them, because there is a heavy language barrier, even over something like, I would say, new type, which is something that I love to collect, and we'll talk about at some point. But like, it's not just appreciating the art. Like, it's very densely packed information. You can, as I always say, with the Google Translate camera functionality, you can hold it over certain parts and kind of figure out release dates and what to look for. And so what I do is I like to sit down, have a little drink, put on some relaxing SNES music or relaxing Sega Saturn music, and just sit there and go through these magazines and have a moment, like I did as a kid when I would just sort of pour over the Nintendo Power magazines back in the day. So this kind of captures that. They're very cheap if you find the right source for them. If you actually go and buy them physically here, it will be about $10 a magazine, but you can find them cheaper online. And if you're somebody who grew up having that experience, I definitely recommend them.
Hmm. Cool.
So that'll be my pick for It Came from Japan. And before we sign off for tonight, we should let our listeners know of our little kind of spin-off series that we're going to be launching soon. And that is, we have set a task for ourselves, and that is we're going to try to pick the best games with numbers in the title. So we're kind of going through video game history. We're looking at all titles of video games that have, say, the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, and we're going to discuss them and then give you our pick for the best game with that particular number in the title. So it's called We've Got Your Number, and you can check our YouTube channels and you'll see these episodes coming up relatively shortly. And then we want you guys to chime in and let us know, did we miss something? Are we insane? So we're going to do episode 0 and episode 1 very soon. But yeah, I think we'll call it there
Call it
for
after this
yeah.
long night.
Yeah, well, that's the deal. We're talking into the night. The night's on, the lights are off, and we just like we say, we're always going down the rabbit hole.
Yep.
All right, so we'll be back in February, and until then, happy shopping, happy importing, and we will see you soon.